Bedding plants generally last for one season, but boy do they give you value for money, flowering their hearts out for months. They're just the thing to give your garden a fresh new look, and you can change the display from year to year. It's a bit like outdoor decorating, really. Being particularly good in pots and baskets, they're fantastic to transform balconies and terraces. But how do you get the best out of your plants for maximum blooms? Choosing strong, healthy bedding plants is essential because you want your scheme to get off to the right start. Avoid dead, diseased or damaged plants, or big, long, straggly ones too. This is what you want, the picture of health. Bushy, compact plants with deep green leaves and no pests and diseases.
And of course, the other thing to remember as well is not to choose a plant just because it's covered in flowers.
Absolutely, you want lots and lots of buds, and then that way you'll get flowers in your garden straight away.
Colours are down to personal choice, but if you need some inspiration and guidance choosing colour, just have a look at our colour wheel online.
Growing bedding plants in containers is a fantastic way to bring both colour and texture to your patio or terrace.
Drainage is key to ensure that any excess water can escape the pot. Plants love water, but don't give them too much or the roots will rot.
First up, pick a container with drainage holes in the base, and then you'll also need to put in a thin layer of drainage material too. Now you could use broken terracotta chunks, any old gravel that you've got lying around, or if you're gardening up high on a balcony or roof terrace and you're worried about weight, you could use broken polystyrene chunks. But here's a good little tip. Unless you're potting your container in its final position, just get a little piece of newspaper, one sheet will do, and lay it over the drainage hole before you put in your drainage material and then your compost. And what this will do is it will stop the drainage material and compost from falling through the hole as you transport your pot to its new home. Of course, that will rot away in a day or so. So, we've got our newspaper in the bottom, and now we've added our drainage material. Time for the compost. Start by filling your pot 2/3 full, and then just firm the compost gently so that it doesn't settle when you water your plants.
There are composts designed specifically for containers, and these are good to look out for. Just read the bag before buying to make sure you get the right one.
What you'll find is that specialist container composts have fertilisers and water-retaining crystals perhaps already mixed in. Now you can of course just use standard multi-purpose compost, peat-free preferably, and then mix in the crystals and the fertiliser yourself. You'll find a whole lot in the gardening section of your local store.
To remove the plants from their trays, just gently give it a little tap, or in this case put your finger underneath and gently remove the plant from the tray.
Thank you very much. Now we've got a classic terracotta pot here, so we're going to go for a scheme of reds and pinks to complement. Thinking about height, start with your taller plants in the middle, working your way down to smaller ones on the outside, and then you might therefore also want to put a few trailers there to tumble down the sides too. So we'll pop these in. Now you may find that you actually have to add a little bit of compost underneath the smaller plants to bring them up in height. But essentially what you're aiming for is to not cover the root ball of the plant too much. You want to just come up to about there. You do not want compost sitting up here because the plant will rot. Well, should we have some petunias this time?
Sure.
We'll put one of those in there, in there, in there. Once you've got all your plants in position, you then need to fill in the gaps with compost. But importantly, I'm making sure that the top of the plants are about 2 centimetres or so from the rim of the pot. And this is important, this is a watering gap. And what this means is that when you water, the water stays in the pot and doesn't all wash out and wash the compost over the sides. Watering is particularly important, especially for summer bedding plants in containers which dry out double quick. You might find that you're watering every day in really hot spells. And do remember to deadhead regularly. When you spot that a flower is over, just go in perhaps with some scissors or your fingers and pinch it out. This will stop the plants from running to seed, meaning you'll get a lot more flowers and a far longer season of interest. We're now going to show you how to make a very simple but colourful hanging basket. There are lots of different types available, from ones with solid sides and a reservoir in the bottom to your traditional wire basket like this. Of course, if you do use a wire basket, you're going to need a liner. Traditionally, it was sphagnum moss which you packed into the side, but you can now get felt liners or even coir liners like this. Okay, I want to put some trailing plants into the side of this basket. So first up, I'm going to fill about a third with compost, no more than that. So we'll pop that in. Now we've already added some fertiliser and some water retaining crystals to this compost. And this is good stuff because not only does it feed the plant, but it keeps water in the basket, and baskets do dry out quickly. Of course, just remember to check if you need to wear gloves, it will say on the label. So we've half filled. Now we take the plants out from the pots, and root ball first, we carefully feed them through the holes in the side. This is a bit tricky, this bit, and it's a bit messy, but just go with it.
You can use most bedding plants for hanging baskets, but some are more suitable for the task. Just read the label to be sure.
So once we've got all our trailing plants in around the outside, we fill up to the top with compost. Again, just leave a little lip at the top of your basket so that when you water, it doesn't all just flood down the sides. What we do now is we arrange the plants in the top. Now the way that we would do that would be the same for were it a container. Taller plants in the middle, graduating down to smaller ones on the outside. That one's going to go in there. To keep your basket looking good, you'll need to deadhead regularly and water copiously too, perhaps up to twice a day in really hot spells. After about 4 to 6 weeks, you'll need to feed regularly as well, and I use something like tomato fertiliser. It's really good every fortnight. Now you don't need to be restricted to just traditional bedding plants. You could go for a gorgeous herb basket and perhaps include some tumbling tomatoes or salad leaves. Bedding plants aren't just great for pots and baskets, they're also really useful for filling colour gaps in your borders too.
Just use a hand fork to remove any small weeds, work in some compost and some general fertiliser and get planting.
To avoid a patchy look, plant each plant in blocks or natural looking informal teardrop shapes. And don't forget that you'll need to arrange plants with height in mind. That's taller plants at the back running down to smaller plants in front. It'll say how big each plant grows on the label, of course. And don't think that just because you're planting bedding plants in the border that you can get away without watering regularly and deadheading too. First up, if you put fertiliser down before you planted, just check on the packet to identify when it runs out, and then after that you can top up with more fertiliser to get a lot more blooms. There are loads of different fertilisers available, from quick release, slow release, controlled release, even organic ones. You'll find a massive range in store. Do check the packet because you will need to wear gloves with some of them. Secondly, and perhaps this is most important, is check that the plants with which you're using are frost tolerant. Many bedding plants, particularly summer bedding plants, can't stand frost and must be planted outside when all danger of frost has passed, which down south is mid to late May, up north could be early June, but do check the forecasts just in case. Of course, you can get ahead by growing baskets or containers in a greenhouse and then placing them outside when all danger of frost has passed.